Okay. Welcome back, everyone. So yeah, just a couple announcements for this week. No meeting next week because it's going to be spring break, obviously. So enjoy. Hope everyone has a good time. After break, we will be doing a workshop on making shaders. Ethan, you should be good for that still, right? Sweet. Okay. Just a reminder, we have the semester jam going on right now. If you're interested, the theme is hostile. You have until like pretty much the beginning of May to work on that. So I would say that spring break's pretty good time to get some stuff moving on that if you are feeling like you're kind of behind or just want to get started on it at all. So yeah. And the game jam is officially April 11th to the 13th. It's going to be in just for Marston apparently, but Marston 2300 is where we'll actually be in. Yeah. All right, world building. So you might be wondering, I mean, probably not since you're here, but you might be wondering what is world building. The kind of like the idea is sort of what kind of like the essence of like a sort of world that you're in for like a game, movie, stuff like that. It's a lot of like the more like subtle writing things that aren't just like like dialogue or like the story, stuff like that. Story can be conveyed through world building, but it doesn't have to be.
Environmental storytelling skills in Fallout series.
Yep. So welcome. So yeah, just any examples of like world building or like favorite examples of like world building in video games. Yeah.
Disco Elysium is very like strange and like between like an older kind of like 50s, 60s type history, but also it's this weird like transitional thing, and there's also like strange things that couldn't really exist in our world. That just everything else in the game is so realistic that it always like is surprising in like a fun way when those pop up.
Yeah, which
could never exist in our world.
I feel like for like that example especially, it's like it's meant to be like kind of like weird and like somewhat off-putting, just because like the whole game is focused around like everything being kind of like foreign to you. So because like you have amnesia. Anyone else have an example? Ethan?
One of my favorite examples of world building is like anything Dark Souls or Elden Ring.
Right.
They don't straight up tell you a lot of the story. You have to find it from like finding armor that's in a random corner with a random corpse next to it, and then when you read the description, wow, now you get.
Yeah, it's just like this guy died here because like someone killed him. Like, ooh. Yeah, one more.
In that same vein, Hollow Knight.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. Like, I feel like especially with Hollow Knight, a lot of like the story is conveyed through like the like sort of world building, which I think is a fun way to go about it at least. So yeah, we'll do one more.
I was just going to kind of elaborate on that. Early on in the game, you see this thing saying like the eternal kingdom right in front of the bridge, and then the whole bridge is crumbling.
Yeah, really good like sort of like subtle storytelling there. So all right, we'll talk about some of the like elements of world building. They can generally be split up into many different categories. So like stuff from like land, history and lore, the way people talk, different nations that can be in your world, people, culture, legends, and just like general strangeness, which is like I would just say like magic or like sci-fi elements, stuff that's like not realistic in nature. So going into like what land is, obviously you kind of can intuit what that means, but just to be a little more specific, it's like sort of the geography, the natural resources, kind of like plants, animals, and stuff like that. Weird weather patterns and stuff like that. Like I don't know, I think like just thinking like off the top of my head, like Stardew Valley I know has like they had like in one of the new updates there's like a weird like green rain or something that happens, and like everything will be covered in like moss, and it's like yeah,
So much energy.
but like just like a lot of like random stuff like that I think is like really like just cool ways to make your world feel like more unique. It's like just a very simple like visual way of like distinguishing it, or like say like plants and animals, like obviously like Subnautica has like a bunch of different like just like weird fish, and like it helps really like make it feel alien and immersive in a way, because like you can also like read a lot of detailed information about these like fake animals, like they're like actually like existing and like how they interact with an ecosystem sort of thing. So like history and like lore, I would kind of split into like 4 different like mini categories. Present day being like, you know, what's literally happening right now sort of thing. Like the near past being like, not that there's like a explicit line, but just like anything that's happened like within the last probably like, I don't know, 100 years, just to like give like a rough answer. It's like stuff that's like still within people's like minds and stuff like that. Where like distant past would be more like, I don't know, like just going way further back, like 2,000 years or so. Like there's not like a real distinction. It's just more of like stuff that's like ancient civilizations and stuff more like that. And then whereas like deep past is often like more like forgotten history. So like maybe you're in like a fantasy setting and like all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we found out there's actually like an entire like old civilization that used to be here that we didn't know about. That's crazy. Like that's like deep past. Like you don't even know how far back it goes, sort of thing. So like I would say like, an example is like Minecraft pottery, I guess. I mean, it's not like great, but it's like the implication is that like these people have been around for like who knows how long, but they're not around anymore, sort of thing.
Who really built the strongholds?
Yeah, who built those dungeons? Who put that bad loot in there? You know,
Who
like
made the Nether?
yeah, who made the Nether?
John, probably.
Or like the like Sheikah shrines in like Zelda being like more like near past, where it's like you know who made them. You don't know when they might have, but like you know at least like generally when they might have been constructed because they weren't always around. So actually, I think those might have been buried. I don't remember exactly. But, howdy. Another thing is like speech is really like a unique way to like make your world feel distinct in a sense. So like how people talk, different like languages is another like really hard in my opinion, but fun way to go about it. Different like accents and dialects and like other like sort of just like vocal quirks, sort of things. So like, I mean like Animal Crossing has a vibe, just from all of its parts together, but also like all the villagers have their like weird little like ways of talking that like make them stand out from one another. Like they usually like will like just like throw like a certain word in over and over again. Doesn't have to be like that simple, but stuff like that. Cyberpunk also does like a lot of their own like made up slang, which is like it can be fun. It can come across as a little corny. Just you have to use a little bit of discretion there, and like how it's used, sort of thing. But it doesn't like it's not inherently bad, I should say. So, but also like you can do like I don't know, like Hollow Knight, where it's like they just make like weird little noises, and like that's also just kind of fun. You don't have to like voice acting either, but because it almost comes across as its own like sort of language. So. Kind of going back to like the land a little bit of like nations and stuff like that. So like you know different borders, how like different countries and stuff interact with one another. Like maybe economies, stuff like that. Like maybe you're doing a world where it's like, oh yeah, we're like making so much money right now, you know. Or like governments. There's like plenty of like movies and games that have like corrupt governments, stuff like that. But you can also talk about more of like the structure of government because maybe it's like completely different from like any political structure we use in like the real world. That could be really interesting to work with. Think about like foreign relations, different laws and politics in your world, stuff like that. A lot of this is like it doesn't make a world, but it can help make a world feel more like filled out in a sense. You're not trying to like cover every single detail because that can get to be a lot to like think about, but it's worth at least considering how it might play into your overall world. Now again, there's other like stuff like people, so like if there's like different like races or species, stuff like that. If they like wear weird clothing or like stuff like that, or like how they interact with like different types of people, or like maybe there's like sort of like a belief system that like a lot of like these people have, or lifestyle, like sort of thing. So like I don't know, like the Gorons, like they all eat rocks. That's objectively different from what anyone else in this room does. Just
If I could, I would.
right, I know you would, Adam. But like a lot of different like fictional like peoples have their sort of like distinguishing qualities that like make them iconic. Like I would say Zelda's a really good example because like a lot of the different like sort of like people within Zelda have very like distinct identities from like say like just the normal Hylians. Like there's like the bird people and like the way that they like organize their houses and stuff are different because they're birds, you know, like stuff like that. So kind of with that as well as like different culture stuff. So like what kind of food do they eat? Again, is their architecture different? Do they make different types of like art? Or like just any of that like music, literature. A lot of that can just like, again, make things feel more interesting from a world building perspective. Also considering stuff like religion or like if they have different holidays related to like maybe said religion. Again, stuff like that. So, and then like sort of with like the history and religion, it's kind of somewhere in between. It's like different stuff like legends. So like in your world, are there like these like myths that people believe, or like are they like are there like folk tales that like tell of like different like heroes and villains and stuff, and like how is that narrative like depicted, and like who is the actual like sort of like good or bad in that case, and is that like even real, or like just stuff like that, like prophecies, etc. It's all kind of just like stuff to like make people like usually a player like think more about like sort of what's really going on, and can be like a lot more engaging. You don't have to include that, of course. It doesn't work for every world either. So, and other stuff is like strangeness. So I just kind of think it's more like general stuff that isn't real in a way. So like magic. Arguably, sci-fi is just magic, but like with fancy words. I mean, like it's meant to be more of a like idea of what the future could be. Other stuff like metaphysics, like including like souls, afterlife, stuff like that, as well as like different types of monsters. Obviously, you don't see like a minotaur walking down the hallway. Just like general stuff like that. So, a lot of games really enjoy having a lot of their like weird, like strange stuff like that, and can like sort of flesh out a lot of different settings. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you mentioned sci-fi, I think it definitely has a lot of range within the genre. Like, you have part sci-fi that emphasizes like realistic, like speculative fiction, is trying to like actually like put into like realistic, put in realistic ideas of like what the future could be like. Whereas there's a lot of sci-fi that's very fantastical, like Dune or even I don't know if Star Wars counts as like sci-fi, but
It's sci-fi fantasy-ish. Like,
yeah. But yeah, that's like much more fantasy adjacent, and there's like a lot of range like in between. It doesn't have to be realistic.
Yeah.
It can be fun and silly.
Right. Which like similar with like that is like also like magic can be either like sort of like a hard magic system where like everything has rules and like there's an actual like science to it. What's a good example? Like I don't know, like alchemy from like Full Metal Alchemist, if any of you seen that. It's like very much structured around this idea of like being an actual like sort of science, even though it is effectively just magic. Compared to something like I don't know, like D&D, where it's literally just like, oh yeah, we have like a bunch of different like spells you can just sometimes do, or like Harry Potter, where it's like they just kind of like pull stuff out of their ass sometimes, and it's just like, yeah, I can cast a spell that's like very specific in this instance. That is like I just happen to remember.
So I'm gonna explode you spell.
Yeah, like the screw that guy, screw this guy specifically sort of spell. So stuff like that. It's a lot harder to make like an actual like hard magic system. So if you want to just be like, hey, I'm in like Dragon Quest and I can just like shoot a fireball. That's like one of my things I can do. Like it doesn't have to be like super explicit in what it can do. Just know if you want to do like a hard magic system, it is way more work.
Yeah.
Because you basically have to explain how everything works and have a reason behind it. So All right. So now that we kind of like have talked about a lot of like these like kind of ideas, I want to try to like apply it in some way. So we're gonna do a little activity. So I want everyone again to like some small groups, and if you haven't already, if you did bring any trinkets, if you want to come bring them up here, that's okay. So what we're gonna do is like everyone just grabs like one of the trinkets up here. It's like a bunch of these sort of things. I guess we can include the stapler. So yeah. So you'll select an item and then basically just come up with a. Also, make sure to like not damage other people's stuff. I think that should be evident, but just don't, be rude about it. So.
Tons of
Unless we want one more minute.
Wait till the hospital.
Sweet. Alrighty. Who wants to go first? Unless, actually, Jeff, we could just do ours first.
What?
We could just do ours first.
Okay, can I come?
Yeah, if you want to.
Because I would have
Bet.
some notes.
Yeah, okay. So, we have this doohickey that Jeff's holding. What is it? It's basically this, like, post-apocalyptic scrap instrument weapon thing. So, it is sort of this, like, riot shield constructed out of, like, old, like, screen display scrap, like, like the little, like, sort of like display filter thing on your like monitors and stuff like that. Made out of those. Basically, the way it works is it's really freaking big. You have two people hold it on each side, and there's like one dude who just like has like this big scrap piece of metal or something like that, and like or like a sword, and like slashes at like the wires. There's supposed to be more, and it plays this like chord, and they're also, the wires are electrified, and when you slash them, there's like a little like cool like arc of energy that comes out, and it's like cool and awesome.
And there's a chain lightning effect for up to 5 enemies.
Yeah, sure.
Specifically.
Yeah, and also, in case that wasn't evident, this is taking place in like the like technology apocalypse. So like everything doesn't work anymore. But this does, because
It's Y2K but real.
It's basically Y2K if it was real. So, also it's like kind of reflective, and like you can like signal. Oh,
The pick is, like
reflective.
or your sword or a pick or whatever.
Yeah, and so you can like signal with it and shit.
Which is good because all of like other communication devices are shot.
Yeah, there's like no more like carrier pigeons and like cell phones and all that way
What
people
happened to-
communicate.
Did all the pigeons just fucking die?
Don't ask.
Probably. Who knows? It's a mystery. It's a larger mystery, a part of the world that people are still asking what happened. Anyway, that was pretty much it. Woo! Yeah. Okay. Sweet. You and me now. Clap now. Okay. Who wants to come up next?
I nominate Mauricio. You guys go. I don't nominate myself. Go.
Do it, Ethan. I'm picking you right
I'll go
now.
next, don't worry.
I'm also picking you.
Yeah. No pressure.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna.
Yeah, zero pressure. You guys.
Also, when you're done, leave your trinket up front so that people can come grab it.
So it wants to
Do we want to put the scene fire?
I'm not sure how that would translate given this.
Okay, so imagine you're in a game and you enter. It's set place in like a college or something. Like, I don't know, Iowa State. It's set in Iowa State. And you go into your professor's office hours. And, oh no, he's dead on the floor. I don't know. What was on his desk and in his office? Well, he had a mug, promoted to daddy, a deck of cards, and his keychain
Oh.
of the camp. That's how you know it's in Iowa State. So that's some moral building there. But, use.
Alright, do you want me to keep explaining
Sure.
for me? Ladies and gentlemen, small time, small game, big idea. Now imagine, you walked into your professor's room, help hours. You're not understanding this topic. The professor we've all had the experience. Our professor has a little bit of a heavy accent, a little bit of broken English, can be hard to understand, but his help hours are really helpful. So you show up, your professor had just last week told you about a pretty big incident in his life and didn't really elaborate. You left thinking your professor might have killed someone, but that's whatever. Your professor's dead the next week, and now all of a sudden the entire mathematics department is there with you trying to figure out who killed him. Why the mathematics department, you might be asking? The answer is simple. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a man in the Chinese Department of Education in the mathematics department. Unfortunately, though, he had illicit sexual relations with a woman he was not supposed to. No further elaboration. And he had to move.
Is he a Minecraft YouTuber?
And on his way to coming to Iowa State to escape his old affairs, he saw this cup and he liked it, so he bought it.
And now, because of that, when asked his name, unfortunately, moving in frantic situations means you don't fully learn the language. And when asked what is your name in a foreign language, you might not know.
So you might just
But if
say
somebody
the first
points
name.
at your mug and asks you, what's daddy? Everybody knows what daddy is.
It's me. Well, your professor.
And so from here, your professor confesses this to you in his help hours one day. Why? Nobody really knows. And now he's dead. So now it is your job to try to figure out who this man might be. He's also a professor in analytics. He uses cards to communicate, basically. It's like a coding system, but with cards, really. Like four, all four suits, just like 4 variable equations. Should be fine.
Now assume you're in this situation. You're the professor. You just moved to a new place. Teachers don't get paid as much as they should, and you need to make a little more money. But you're a professor of statistics. You have a deck of cards. What might be one of the reasons people might not like you? Well, you could be like this professor, and you might be a card count at a casino to bring in some extra dough, but you make friends with some of the wrong people.
Or you might be a nerd. Who knows? Anyways, that's pretty much it.
Who's gonna present?
That's cool.
We gotta get proper music. Crazy Dave's greeting to Fletchers is zombies.
So at first view, this may just look like an ordinary frying pan. However, someone else might note they also works decent as a hat. The less obvious as detail is it also works as a radar dish, detecting the hidden cosmic rays and altering your brain to allow communication with plants. Oh my gosh.
It's true, actually. The plant spoke to me in my dreams.
Wait a minute.
Everyone knows plants don't lie. The plants told us so themselves.
Yes, that means they're trustworthy.
That's good
actually.
logic.
Yeah.
If you say you don't lie, you actually can't lie about that. It's true. And then also on the back of this fashionable hat and radar dish, there's also a secret map to where this came from, where all the treasure that this holds is. See, this isn't crust. This isn't grease, from dinner from whoever brought this. These dark spots are actually islands, and Iowa State is somewhere down here because we're in hell. We're in very cold hell. But if you go up, you'll kind of see landmarks resembling the dark spots on this map. I don't know, maybe it's in Montana. But if you follow the mountains, there's a secret base, and there's some runes inscripted on this. It says made in Brazil. That's probably where the treasure is, but yeah, it's also a treasure map. So yeah, pretty cool.
I had to add the PVZ thing.
I have a question.
What?
Who owns that fine hat?
Oh, me now, because I stole it.
A guy named David.
My name is David.
Yeah. Get it? But versus get it because Crazy Dave.
All right.
I don't know. I don't watch.
Buenos dias, my friends. All right.
I don't speak that.
All right. At least one of you do. Okay. So, this here. You guys want to introduce this thing?
This is a pickle pen. It's a cucumber that has been magically transmuted into a pen.
And you may be asking yourselves, why? Why is there a pickle that was turned into a pen? Well, allow me to explain. So, in an alternate Earth, years ago during the Renaissance, a farmer whose crops were going bad was just trying to figure out what to do with his excess because, you know, there's only so much compost you can make. The animals won't eat them if they go bad. And using some books and scriptures he found in his cellar, he was able to transmute the cucumber into an object. Realizing what the potential this would have, he went off. This man started transmuting so many plants. Just corn, that's a chair, boom. He just kept going, right? And eventually, though, he wasn't quite satisfied, and he switched to animals. And after a while, he just couldn't quite get it. He couldn't quite get what he was looking for. And eventually, he ended up turning his nephew into a chair. And this simple act caused a cascading effect, which led to a split in society where they supported this rediscovery of magic.
Yes, essentially, a cult formed around this type of magic. People seeing him do this, they wanted to use it to pursue immortality, to turn people into objects, to immortalize them. So they turned the farmer into a scythe, of course, so they could pray to him.
And so this eco-fascist cult began taking power over the land. Now, after years of taking power and transmuting all of their enemies into objects, a small rebellion formed. And as magic was still a very renewed concept at this time, not much was known about it. So, in response to transfiguring living creatures into objects, the cult only saw one possible solution to this, to fight back. Necromancy. If they turned their members into undead, they would be immune for the transmutation process. So, this underground rebellion group has been trying to fight back against this transfiguration cult for a few years now, as the cult slowly has been gaining power and expanding over the land almost exponentially.
This is happening in a small German town.
Of course.
But it's not just limited there for long. And now, yeah, since magic is still currently a frontier for these people, since it hasn't been used in centuries, it's up to this rebellion group to stop the cult, or it's up to the cult to just take over. And magic is still being discovered as this is going on. So, who will come out on top? Oh, I don't actually know. I guess you'd have to read a story to figure it out.
That's true, actually.
I have a question.
What's your
Yes.
question?
Is the pickle pen mightier than the pickle sword?
Yes,
it
very
depends.
much so.
Honestly, I would say it depends. Depends on. I mean, if it's just.
That's how they wrote their manifestos.
I mean, if you imagine turning a pickle into a sword, it would be kind of like smooth and bumpy, you know?
Is this man power scaling a pickle?
It's a pickle pen.
Yeah. See,
Different.
you don't get it.
Does this require a high IQ to understand?
Listen,
Well,
he turned a pen into a pickle. Funniest shit I've ever seen. What do you got?
Can you make 2 carrots out of a pickle?
Yeah, what's exchange rate?
Yeah.
No, you turn living
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 things
organisms into
inorganic organisms.
Are you
sentient
implying that
or
plants
non-sentient
aren't
objects.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to turn it from organic to inorganic. You can't do the other way. You can't just turn from organic to organic.
How many calories are there?
I mean,
Also, not everyone can do magic, so some members of the cult
Something up.
make
They
furniture
just
out of
immediately
people's
turn
bones
someone
and
into
stuff.
uranium.
Like,
well, I mean, this is like the Renaissance era, so I'm not sure they know about uranium.
I'm sure there's some like
they'll
magical
find
rods
out.
that like
The magical green rocks.
anyway, that is our
Yeah,
world.
that was our world.
Yeah.
I think we have one more. You guys want to talk about it, or?
Oh.
we got the lobster, and this lobster watched his parents die. He was in an aquarium. He watched his parents being murdered by humans, and then he wanted vengeance.
So basically, he managed to escape this like restaurant where he's being held in like a tank, and he finds his way to the ocean. And while scouring the ocean, he finds his frying pan, and upon coming into contact with it, gains like human intellect, begins to resent the humans, and starts to lead a war effort against the land.
And by cooking up human and land animals, he gives sentience to other sea creatures, and he finds a crab. Or wait, was it crab? Okay, a crab sidekick. Yeah, and they. I don't know.
That was pretty much it. They
Yeah.
strengthened their army for a couple of years. They waged their war against the land, and goes on for a while.
Yeah, he masters like the Excalibur, frying pan.
Frying pan arts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is this lobster like bigger than average, or just a normal sized lobster?
I think it gets bigger after getting a frying pan. Would be my
Okay,
guess.
so it grows. That's
Yeah.
a training arm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big one, Tosh.
Does the lobster have a cool name?
Lobster.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice aura.
You said he was from a restaurant, right?
Yeah, and oh yeah,
An
and
old
the
restaurant?
crab was from a different. Was from like an aquarium.
Mm-hmm.
What was your question?
What restaurant was he in?
Red Lobster.
Oh, yeah.
That would be.
So the lobster's name is Lobster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is every lobster named Lobster, or were his parents just really lazy?
Lobster 1, Lobster 2.
So how many so which lobster is he?
Yeah, what's his lobster ID number?
Yeah.
What's his social security?
What's the lobster going to his credit card number again?
Yeah, what's his tax bracket?
What is the current eco-socioeconomic like climate of the lobster society?
6,749.
So it's like 6,000.
Is it 2008 housing crisis?
Is there a lobster housing?
Yeah.
Is there a lobster?
He doesn't work anywhere. Wait, was this lobster born in the restaurant?
Well, he needs ice.
Yes, and he
Okay,
watched his
so
parents
wait,
die.
So does he have to like get past like the equivalent of like sea ice to
Yeah,
like,
does he
get
need a
into the
green
ocean?
card? Like a lobster green card?
Yeah. So is
lobster
he like,
card?
legally allowed to the ocean, or does he have to come back on land to like escape the authorities?
He just escapes the restaurant. I don't know how he gets there exactly. Didn't think of that much.
He didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, he didn't want to talk about it. It's like a mysterious part of his past.
Okay.
He's a bit
He's
sensitive
brooding
about it.
a lot.
Yeah, he's brooding about
That's
it.
like that lobster.
People found out about it, the revolution
That's
steam.
Yeah.
Okay, so is he working with? So he's mad because humans eat lobsters, right?
Yeah.
So like, what does he think about like other sea animals that eat lobsters, like seals and stuff?
Well, that's natural. That's a natural process. But like humans, they got too powerful, and now they're like abusing it.
Okay, so like, is he stupid? So like, if like an orca like ate his parents, he'd be alright.
Yeah.
He wouldn't care much.
That's a circle of life.
That's just
We just have
yeah, it's just
You know, you win some, you lose some. Yes.
it's just
Well, like if an orca ate your parents, like, what are you gonna do?
I'd be pretty bad.
just sue the
honestly,
orca. Yeah, like.
I'd be chill. I'd get over it.
If it comprehend simple like God ate your parents, I feel
Yeah.
like you'd be like.
Well, I think about it for a minute or
We're
two, then I
upset.
realize, yeah, it's
Or you realize I'm a lobster. What am I gonna do about it?
Yeah. A wacky world.
So wait, can he like? How does he get back to the? Does he like? Okay, wait. I'm just thinking here with this frying pan. Does it like corrode at all?
No, it's got like a special coating.
Stainless steel. It's like a special frying pan.
Yeah, it's the frying pan version of Excalibur. So.
Okay. Let's see. So where'd it come from?
Some guy on a boat cooking lobster dropped it in the ocean.
Okay, so like, is it imbued with the soul of like the lobsters, or like?
Could be.
Like, how's it?
Yeah, no, the guy on the boat. Remember, he fried up lobsters for him.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's like a
He's,
like
carrying on
betrayal
people's
in like
legacy.
the frying pan essentially like.
The frying pan was screaming as it was making the food.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
the
wow,
soul
so like the frying
Yeah.
pan represents all the anguish that the lobsters had to go through.
Yeah.
So
And they're empowering the lobster number, whatever.
So the lobster's carrying the trauma and anguish of his past generations.
Yeah, actually, the
Yes.
7,000 number,
There's a lot of layers to
that's
this.
that's how many frying pan souls are in the frying pan.
So is there like a lobster equivalent? Does a lobster cook somebody and then throw it up on land and have like a human like take it, or is it just one thing? Like does he have a rival?
Well, yeah, where do you think humans came from?
yeah.
I didn't think of that. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Or I guess you mean as shrimpable as that, given that. Logan, you're making this very strong.
All right. You guys have anything else then, or?
No.
All right, sweet. All right, those were awesome. Thank you, everybody. Oh, was that? Yeah, you can take your stuff back. Yeah, everyone can come grab their stuff real quick. So I'll just go over like a couple more like sort of general things that are good.
You only have 5 minutes. You might have to skip it.
I can talk pretty fast.
I don't know.
Okay, if you really want me to skip it, I can.
It's going to be very, very fast.
How fast do you guys want me to talk?
1.5
Really
speed.
slow.
Okay. So just to kind of summarize at least the main things. So like obviously land, history, speech, nations, people, culture, and legends, and like strangeness are all like really important factors in like sort of fleshing out your world. Just going through like a lot of different like just sort of ideas and building upon them. Just kind of bouncing back and forth can lead to like a lot of different like unique ideas and sort of developments within your world. So yeah, just some like real quick practical advice. Shout out to Jeff, who like mostly wrote this part. A couple important things are like consistency. So like it's fine for things to be unrealistic, but you want to make sure it's at least like consistent with itself. Kind of like what I mentioned earlier. Like you can have like a hard magic system, but you want to make sure that it like at least still follows some sort of logic. You don't want like to create too many contradictions, otherwise you're going to start making a bunch of plot holes, stuff like that. And like you don't really like sometimes asking yourself like why would like X do Y is a really important thing. Like actually having some sort of like thought behind it, and not just being like, oh yeah, these people just are like mean for no reason. They just do that, like sort of thing. So important thing to consider, and like just always be open to changing things as needed. It's always good to take inspiration from real world. A lot of like fictional worlds have like strong parallels to like actual events or like stuff that happens in the real world. Obviously, the actual like real life world is the most complex like space you can pretty much think of. So often it can provide really good insight into like cultures and like history, politics. So just like try to engage with as much like history and just like cultures as you can, if you want to have like a pretty wide breadth of like variety, in a sense. So, and like for most of the time in like story-based games, just try to prioritize the story over the world. The world is an important and interesting factor within like a lot of your writing, but it is probably not the most important thing for the majority of games. And it can be awesome to have a really immersive world, but if your story is kind of like meaningless, then like who's going to want to engage with said world you've came up with? So, and story can just give a lot of like weight and consequence to like things that actually happen. Because like if you have a lot of really interesting characters, but like no real reason to care about them, then like no one's going to really want to engage with that. Yeah.
So say you have a less story-driven game, and the story is more about the world itself. How would that work?
That would be more of a scenario. Is like you want to focus more on the world then.
Yeah. This is more talking about like character-driven work.
Yeah.
Where it's like it has a lot more focus on like plot beats and stuff.
Yeah. Whereas like say like FromSoft games, it's like the story is more of in a backseat, whereas the world is more of what you're getting into. So
That's fine.
yeah, it's again, it's also not like a like strict rule. It's just things that can help. So And then of course, plan it out. I strongly advise just like writing everything you can think of down, and you can kind of just pick and choose like later of like what sounds good. Just try to keep things organized in some sense. Like a world doc or like some sort of like storyboarding software can be really helpful, and sort of just like mapping things out and like keeping things somewhat concise for you, because sometimes it can get to be a lot if you have a really dense world. So, but also don't plan too much out. If you're like focusing on like every single little detail instead of like, you know, actually writing anything, it's not gonna really like account too much or like amount to much.
The
So
way I write stories, the way I've been writing
here,
stories
can you tell me right after we're done? We're just about done. So, and then yeah, just be careful of like scope creep, because like if you have too many like just different little things, it can make actually finishing the story really hard. So, but yeah, and it's okay to leave things behind. If an idea is not working, you can scrap it, find a way to use it in a different work, or just like rework it in some capacity. So if it's not working, you don't have to do it. So, but yeah, other than those, just some quick reminders. We'll not be meeting next week because of spring break. So I hope everyone enjoys that. We'll be doing a shader workshop after spring break, so be sure to swing by for that. Semester Jam's still ongoing. I strongly encourage everyone to participate. We do have some prizes for that. So, and the actual official game jam is April 11th to 13th in Marston 2300. So make sure to swing by. It'll be fun. So, otherwise, go forth, make games, be awesome. Also, I didn't remove the little doohickeys on the main thing, so.
The what?
Yeah,
This guy hates joy.
What?
This
Okay.
guy doesn't like these little.
Cause they're just like meaningless. They're just like
Yeah,
random
why is the
lines.
G like pointing
Yeah,
away?
the G's not pointing at anything. They're just pointing to
Because
the T.
it's
What is
fun,
the
silly, and whimsical.
What is the T emphasizing?
What does the T ever mean? Okay, it means it's cool.
I got it.
That's all it needs to.
It stands for T for really cool games.
Yes.
You're right. You
See,
got
this
it, you
guy
got
is
it.
world
You want a
building
cookie?
before
Shit,
we
I didn't
even
get
do
cookies.
And then this is
Oh
pointing to
yeah, because
nothing.
people beat me.
It's
at
okay.
stuff.
Everyone.
I don't think anybody who beat you showed up.
Just like, it's
Yeah.
basically a world of imagination if you think about it.
Yes.
You're on
It's the
something.
games we haven't made yet.
It's the games that we've made along the way.
And then club is emphasized because we're a family.
Yeah, we're.
What? It
No,
says
we're
club.
boxed in and we're breaking out of the box.
It says a club.
Okay, I like that.
It doesn't say family.
Or this
What are you
represents.
talking about?